love you, Dani Cooper. Also, there's like this weird feeling about you being Dani Cooper because I'm Dani and I love Winnie Cooper from Wonder
Oh,
as a kid.
oh yes.
Sort of like synergy there for me. I don't know. No.
I'll take.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Julianne Welch. Want to welcome you to January's MindFull Meetup. Just a quick overview because I feel like we have a few new faces. We've been doing this. This is our fourth one, our fourth meetup. But this was created by myself and Danielle Hartnett Whitaker, who is an actress, an acting teacher, a mother, and Meredith, who is a mother social media manager for Empath Lee Harris Energy. And we all came together through Beauty Counter, which is a disruptive clean beauty B corporation. And we started thinking and wanting to just come together to connect with ourselves and other like-minded women who have a passion to learn about health and wellness in terms of body, mind, and spirit. So each month we plan to provide a safe space for learning from an expert in the field of mindfulness, wellness, personal growth, and welcome you to join us. Most often it's going to be on the first Thursday of each month. And this month, it's my pleasure to introduce Dani Cooper, who's here with us. She is an Enneagram expert and coach. She works with individuals, couples, and groups. And we're so excited to have you here, Dani. I learned about the Enneagram probably 6 months ago and have been obsessed with it ever since. And so I'm particularly excited about this topic. Right before I hand over the spotlight to Dani, if everybody could just put in the chat if you are familiar with the Enneagram or not, if you've never heard of it, if it just sounded interesting to you, if you know your number, let us know your number if you want to share, just so that we all sort of get engaged from the get-go and see, and then I'll turn it over to Dani.
Awesome. I love seeing everybody's responses coming in there, because I think if you do know your Enneagram type and you've just kind of discovered it, I think you're like Julie, like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to talk about it all the time. And that's totally what happened to me. So that's why I dove headfirst into the Enneagram. Is like, I just noticed somebody else saying, like, when I found my number, I felt really seen, like maybe for the first time in my life. So there's something really special about that. Like, if we're all really looking for love and belonging, like, you know, just getting that sense of people seeing who we are and maybe even understanding ourselves a little better for the first time too, is just one of the golden aspects of the Enneagram. So I'm Dani, I'm a mom of 3, and I found my type probably about 6 years ago. And I think that I had been living sort of asleep up until that moment. And the awareness that finding out my type, I'm a type 1, gave to me was, it's kind of uncomfortable, honestly. First of all, you look in this mirror and it's kind of an up close and personal look at yourself. And so sometimes it's like, oh man, like, you know, you get too close to the mirror and you see like there's cilantro in my teeth. But what's the alternative? You walk around all day like that, right? So awareness is double-edged, but it's ultimately so good for us and so good for the relationships in our life. So I will talk about the Enneagram tonight from a couple different perspectives, because I think it's got such amazing applications. First of all, like I said, personally, I've never grown from using a tool like the Enneagram like anything else. Like, I've done Myers-Briggs and other sort of personality assessments. Has anybody else ever taken another personality assessment, like strengths or found your color, or like what Disney princess are you? You know, they're on BuzzFeed, and you know, you can't scroll very long before a quiz comes up. And so, but one thing I always like to mention is the Enneagram is different than those. I love those quizzes too, don't get me wrong. I love magazine quizzes. Remember when there were quizzes in magazines? Okay, I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't think I've gotten a magazine in a really long time, but I've always loved that sort of thing. But when I encountered the Enneagram, it was like, it was this different sort of deep thing. It wasn't just telling me my color or my princess or whatever, but it kind of gave me insight into who I was. And then it gave me insight into how to, you know, change those things that I thought were kind of getting in my way. So not only does it awaken you to who you are, it also gives you a growth path. Some people really hate those personality assessments because they feel like they're putting them in a box or something, or trying to peg them, or trying to sort of reduce them to something simplistic. And what I like to say about the Enneagram is that it doesn't put you in a box, but it does kind of give you insight into the box you're already living from. Kind of shows you the dimensions of the box that you're already in. And none of us want box living. We want freedom and we want growth. So you're probably here because you're a growth-minded person. The other way that I like talking about the Enneagram from is just the relational aspect. The way that knowing my type, and then, okay, if you found your type, you want to know everybody else's type that's around you too. Raise your hand, right? So I found out my husband's type after bothering him about it for a long time. I think his direct quote was, can you please stop psychoanalyzing me? Because, oh my gosh, okay. But once we found our types, both of us could see why we weren't relating very well over a couple of different topics. And I've been married for, gosh, I'm going to be embarrassed now because my math skills. I've been married for 24 years. And so after like almost 20 years of being married, finding his type and then finding out new stuff about him, about like what drove him and why some of the things he did, why he was doing those, that was just mind blowing. So what it can do for your relationships is just remarkable. You get to see each other in new ways. And this isn't just like a partner relationship, but also parents and kids and boss, any relationship you have, best friends, just anybody you want to understand better, even if it's somebody that maybe you don't even like that much. Having insight into what's driving them is golden, because you guys, our world, we're just disconnected from people on so many levels. And so if we can gain empathy and understanding for people in new ways, then I get really idealistic when I think of the world that we could have if everybody could develop that part of themselves and then that empathy for the person that doesn't see like them. Does that sound good? Does that sound like something the world needs? Yeah, I'm not alone in that. I know that. Okay, so how do we find our types? Those of you who took, who know your type, did you take some sort of an assessment? Probably. Yeah, okay. All right, so there are assessments out there. Some are better than others, and none are 100% accurate. So yeah, online quizzes. I want to read through all these chat things too, but some people are stuck. Some people don't understand like what their wings are. But most people who took a test, who found out their number, took a test. That's what most people do. I just want to warn you that when you take a test, like I said, they're not 100% accurate. And so don't get married to your results until you've done a little bit more digging. There are some great books out there. This one's probably my favorite. It's called The Road Back to You. This is where I start anybody who wants to kind of go deep on it. It's very accessible. It's a good read. It's funny and entertaining. So it's not like a textbook. There are a lot of good Enneagram books. A lot of them are pretty, textbook-like. That one's a really great book. It's called The Road Back to You, and it's by Ian Morgan Cron and Suzanne Stabile. So reading up on your type, if you kind of have an idea, is a really good idea. It's also a really good way to get this book. If you have somebody in your life who you would like them to find out their type, but maybe they're not that excited about it as you are, the best way to get them on board is to tell them what your type is and have them read about you. Say, can you read my type in this book? See what you think. Do you think that this is who I am? And 9 times out of 10, they can't resist reading for what their type is too. So kind of a sneaky workaround, but self-awareness, we gotta do this, don't we? So once you kind of have an idea, and I would honestly just recommend delving into it and holding those results loosely, but we'll also get into that tonight. I'm going to do a quick trip around the Enneagram for everyone so that you kind of understand what each type is all about, okay? And you can find different accounts on Instagram and all sorts of ways to sort of dive into the different type descriptions. So what is our type? I mean, there are a lot of different ways to describe it, but the Enneagram describes 9 different types, or 9 different ways of seeing or being in the world. And what I like about it, and I'm going to share my screen here so that I can show you the figure itself, because a lot of the Enneagram is based on the, let me see if I can advance this. I have to move my people around here so that I can, there you go. All right, so a lot of the people, there it is. Everything about the Enneagram is based around this symbol. And the symbol is kind of strange looking. If you've not seen it before, it's like, what's going on here? It's a triangle, and then there's a hexad in the center. So it's geometry, kind of. My geometry teacher would crack up that I'm doing anything with symbols or geometry at all, because I spent most of the time in the hallway because I couldn't stop talking during class. Anyway, but then it's all encompassed by a circle. And the reason I like to call attention to that is because the circle to me represents something unifying. And so I like to think of this symbol as kind of a big table where there's no best spot at the table. Everybody has a place there. No spots better than the other, no spots worse than the other. And that's the same thing that's true about these 9 types. Even though number 1 sounds like it's the best, it's really not. There's no number that's worse than any other. In fact, they're all kind of great and all kind of sucky all at the same time. We have both sides to us, don't we? So just shooting straight with you. But so I like to think of this as a map of your internal landscape. And as you work with it, and there's so many levels, like I have the shortest amount of time to talk to you guys about it. I did a 5-hour workshop on Tuesday, and we got about this deep into the Enneagram. So I'm going to squish in as much as I can tonight. But I think of it as a map, and I think of it as a mirror. We've talked about that. But also your type is your lens on life, okay? It's how you see the world. We all kind of think we see the world as it is, but there's at least 8 other different types of people who see things a totally different way. And I think understanding that is such an important way to be in the world, because I, for many years, thought, well, I mean, my way is the right way. And when you fight with your husband, your way is the right way, but he thinks his way is the right way too. And that's how all kinds of relational issues happen. And so if we can see that we only have one perspective on life, then we can start opening ourselves up to the fact that there are a lot of different other perspectives that are really valid too. And so it's also a lens. When I do workshops, sometimes pre-COVID time, I have these goofy glasses that are all different colors. So like there's a yellow pair of glasses, a blue pair, and often I would have people just put them on because it's a really good reminder that the people in your life see differently than you do. I also like to think of it like a lighthouse. So a lighthouse, when it's doing its job, is going in this full 360-degree arc, all right? It's lighting up everywhere. Our type is kind of how our lighthouse gets stuck. We become hyper-focused in one area so that when we walk into a room, we notice something really different than somebody else. But what happens is there's a lot of things in the shadow when our light is only pointed one direction. And so Enneagram work is really meant to start getting that moving again. Every single type has something to teach every other type. And so just learning your type to begin with is the starting point. It's like the first pin you drop on the GPS. Like, where are you starting from? You're starting from your type, but you're setting out from there so that you can grow and become more holistically healthy and more integrated into all the different aspects that you can be. So Ennea means 9 types. Gram just means this figure. And it's a personality test of sorts. A little bit of Greek root for you. Persona, the root word for personality, means mask. So another way to describe your type is the mask that you wear. So what we're doing is trying to take off that mask as we discover who we are in the Enneagram. So that's just the beginning part of that. I want to head back here though. This is how I like to start. We talked about body, mind, and soul. the Enneagram has an overlay like this. And I really like to start here because it's a good way for people to begin finding their type if they don't have any clue. And if you know your type, just pay attention to this and see how you're feeling about what type you are and what center of intelligence you have. So we have 3 centers of intelligence, 3 ways of knowing things. Most of the time we think, okay, my intelligence resides up here above my shoulders in my mind. And honestly, for most of history, like if it's not a rational thought, then people don't like to give a lot of credence to it, right? That's the most revered type of intelligence or wisdom in our world, especially in the West. And so the Enneagram shows us that no, we have 3 centers of intelligence. And again, they are equal in their importance. And the other thing is we need all 3. We must use these centers of intelligence in balance if we're going to make the best kinds of decisions. So the 3 centers of intelligence are body, head, and heart. Each of those centers of intelligence has 3 Enneagram types that are related to it. The body types, now think about who you are here. Think about how do I experience the information that comes to me from the world? Where does it hit me? So body type people get gut level responses, okay? Like you feel it in your body. You kind of make quick decisions. The driving emotion for the body center type is anger. They kind of have this quick feeling about things, all right? The heart center is next. People in the heart center, you can generally tell them because they are emotive. They generally are pretty warm, but their driving emotion is actually from sadness. They see disconnection, they see loss in the world, and they feel sad about that, and they want to figure out a way to reconnect. So everything kind of hits them at an emotional level. They feel about the things that they see in the world. And then the one we're most familiar with is the head center. So their mental processes are going to inform everything that they do, and they're going to really think about things. The driving emotion for the head center is fear. And so head center types often struggle with anxiety more than other types do. Let me just say, all types feel anger, all types feel sadness. And of course, in these days, a lot of us are dealing with more anxiety than we're used to. But it is the central emotion for the head center. So the next look will be what numbers are associated with these. So your body center types are the gut, 8, 9, and 1. These are the gut people. They feel things in their body. And remember, I said that they feel a lot of anger in their body. They don't do the same thing with the anger, whether they're an 8, 9, or 1. They have different ways of doing things. But they see injustice and it makes them feel upset. And so they create peace by doing different things. The type 8 is going to try and protect themselves and the people around them. Type 9 is the peacemaker, and they're going to try and reconcile the things that they see and mediate. And the type 1 is going to try and fix the problem to create peace. In the heart center, remember, they see sadness in the world and they see disconnection, and they're looking for their significance in the world. And they're achieving that by either helping, like a type 2 would, achieving and being successful in the style of a type 3, or differentiating themselves, kind of setting themselves apart and, trying to find their unique voice and their unique expression. And then the head center is a little fearful. That anxiety is floating around. And so they want to look for a way to get rid of that. And so they look for confidence. And 5s will do that by observing and pulling back. 6s will ask a lot of questions to try and get information so they feel safe and confident. And 7s will look around them for the things that are new and exciting so they can feel stimulated. And that helps them feel confident again in a world of instability. So those are the 3 centers of intelligence. If you want to, let me know. I don't think I can see the chat with this right here, but do you guys, does anybody figure out did you figure out your center of intelligence? Does that seem to jive with the type that you thought you were? Is this helpful? Let me know what you're thinking about that. Anybody have any questions about that so far? I can't see the chat, so maybe I shouldn't be asking questions at this point. But something to remember is that our center of intelligence shows how we gather information, and it's biased. Remember that even if you're a heart person, you got to use your brain, and you should listen to the wisdom of your body too. And that's true for all of the different centers. And so, okay, I do see the chat here. And so balance, again, is the key. You want to make sure that you are using all of your centers of intelligence. And to do that effectively, there are a lot of different practices that I work with my clients on. If they're a head center person, then a lot of times they need to get into their body or their emotions more than they do. And we look for ways to do that. So food for thought. And this is a way to kind of narrow down like what your type might be. If you have no clue what your type is, then if you're like, but I'm a feeling person, I totally know that, then you've just knocked out, 6 of the different types, and you can zero in on that center sometimes. So that's why I find it really helpful, besides the fact that just being integrated with body, mind, and spirit or heart is really important for just a better life in general. So I saw you smiling there, Dani. Was there something that I needed to pay attention to, or something you wanted to say?
I was just saying, since you said that we could try to figure out what ours was, but I'd already done like an online quiz.
Yeah.
7 is my lucky number, and everything I've ever read about 7 is like so just like spot on. And then my friend, who I don't even know so well, but we've had a lot of fun conversations, was like, "Oh, I knew you were a 7." So that's what I was laughing at. So
okay, well, that brings me to something really important, because there are some ground rules with Enneagram and with typing. And one of the ground rules is you should never tell anybody what you think their type is unless they want you to, right? Like, I'm sure you wanted to. And I'm sure as we read through these numbers, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, he is such a type 4. You know what I mean? It's impossible not to do that. But one thing I like to remind people is, like, it is a really sacred journey to find your type, honestly. And you shouldn't take anyone's journey from them unless they're saying, what do you think I am? I have no idea. Of course you can do that. But we definitely want to keep it to ourselves. Nobody else gets to type you, honestly. That is your job. It is your role. Because the thing about the Enneagram is, because some other personality tests are based on watching people's behavior, you can sometimes say, oh yeah, you're Moana. I think the princess you are is Moana. But for the Enneagram, it's all based on your motivations. It's hard to see somebody's motivations. And so that makes it really, really not easy to type someone else most of the time. Sometimes it is. The other ground rule is we don't want to use our Enneagrams, our Enneagram types as a sword or a shield. And what I mean by that is, if you're using it as a sword, you're like, oh my gosh, you're such an 8. That's really hurtful. Like, I've seen people do that, and people actually have gotten kind of hurt from people using the Enneagram in that way. And if you think of the roots of the Enneagram as being a tool for self-awareness and growth and harmony and unity, that's pretty counter to what it's designed for. And we also don't want to use the Enneagram as a shield, where I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I'm being critical. I'm a type 1, okay? Get over it, right? That kind of a thing. So, using it responsibly is really important, because it's a helpful tool when used well. So, okay. We are going to start in on the different types now. And what I want to do, because like I said, with the types, you've seen memes, you've probably seen descriptions. There's a lot of different ways that you can describe every single type, and they are just descriptions. Remember, I said that the Enneagram is based on motivations. And so if you see descriptions or even these names, you're going to see different names associated with each of these numbers too. For example, type 1 is generally referred to as the perfectionist. Well, most type 1s I know, including myself, like, we don't want to be called a perfectionist. Whoever says you're such a perfectionist in a really nice way, like, that's kind of a slam most of the time when people are saying it. And so some people don't like the name associated with their number. And some of just the names are different from teacher to teacher. So keep that in mind. They're just descriptors. And the thing that matters the most is the motivation. behind each number. So we're going to look at 4 things with each type. And I'm checking my time here. We're good on time so far. Okay. We are going to look at the core fear, the core desire, the core weakness. Well, let's just do the core fear and core desire for tonight, because I think I can talk about each one of these types for 2 hours each. So in the interest of time, and so we can get to questions, we're going to learn about what each type fears the most. This is like worst case scenario. This isn't just like some yeah, I'm kind of afraid of that. This is like the worst thing for the person. And then the desire of what they're running to. If they had this, then everything would feel okay. And as you listen, remember, I just want this to be a time of compassionate thought. Every one of these types has a struggle that's really tough for them. And so, understanding that these are people that we're talking about with actual real problems and struggles, I think is really important. So let's start with type 1. Type 1 is known as the perfectionist, but I prefer to call them the reformer, or they walk into a room and kind of see what needs fixing. All right. They're generally very reliable and trustworthy and responsible people. Ones are really good at making things better, which is why the word improver fits pretty well. They're afraid more than anything else of being bad or wrong, of making a mistake, or of being corruptible in some way. So that's a really strong fear that they have, and they really just desire to be good. They just want to do the right thing, and they want to have integrity. They struggle a little bit though with resentment. That would be their weakness that they have. Each type has a weakness, and they long to hear the word that they are good. That's the message that if they would hear that, that's like music to their ears, to hear that they're good. The type 2 is, I like to call them the befriender. They're also known as the helper, more popularly. Type 2s are the people who are just very warm and caring. They are often the people who are helping serve in some way. They have a heart for people. They have this innate ability to sense other people's needs. They have a high degree of empathy, but they are very afraid of being unwanted and unloved and replaceable in people's lives. They're in the heart center. Remember, you get in this heart kind of feel. They really want to be loved and appreciated, to be wanted, and they want you to see them as loving and kind and selfless, and they really are. They have a problem with pride sometimes, and it's not pride in the way that, they think they're so awesome, but they like to be the one who helps instead of the one who receives help. So often they deny their own needs, and self-care is really hard for them. But they long to hear that you love them for who they are, and not just because they do all sorts of awesome things for you. Okay. Another heart center person is the type 3, the achiever. The type 3 is the go-getter of the Enneagram. They like to make to-do lists, to crush goals, and to succeed. They have a core desire of being successful, to be admired, to be looked up to. Often they are CEOs of companies, and they really do achieve a lot. They have a fear, though, that they are a failure, that they really are worthless. And they have an ability to be able to morph into an image of whatever they need to be. When they come into a room, they can kind of take the temperature of the room and then become who would be the most successful type of person in that room. They just have this ability to flex. They have a trouble then a little bit with deceit, their core weakness. It's just not that they're liars, but they really kind of deceive themselves about who they are. When you are so good at putting on different personas and kind of flexing to be whatever somebody needs you to be, you can forget who you are at deep levels. And what they need to hear more than anything else is that they are valued as a person and not because they're successful. All right. Type 4 is our last person in the heart center. They're known as the romantic individualist. Some of them are known as the artists. Some fours I know are like, I don't like that term. It's so much pressure. I'm like, I'm not an artist, but a lot of artists are fours for sure. They are the people on the Enneagram that can sit with sadness without having to fix it. They're very comfortable in the deeper emotions that people have, their own and others. They're very introspective. They have the gift of being able to see what is true and beautiful and authentic in the world. They're very emotionally aware, and they can be very inspiring. We'd have much fewer songs and art and a lot of, you know, really beautiful artistic things without fours. But type fours have a fear that they're defective in some way. Remember I said that they often are trying to differentiate themselves or stand out. They're looking for a missing piece. They kind of are afraid that everyone has this thing, this identity that they alone lack. And so sometimes they struggle with envy when they look at the person who looks like they have this strong identity and they're still searching for their own. And so they fall into compare, despair a lot. But they want to hear the words that they are seen and that they are known and that they are unique. And they truly are. They're some of the most unique people that you'll ever meet, but they have a hard time believing that for themselves. All right, so we're moving into the head triad. And so these three types have the struggle with fear. So there's going to be some anxiety and there's going to be some searching for stability in these types. So type 5 is going to do that. They're known as the observer. And that's because they withdraw a little bit. This is sort of when you see stereotypes of Enneagram memes, which have some truth to them and of course are overblown and just funny sometimes on the other hand. These are the people that, like, you know, never want to go out, are happy about quarantine. That's kind of how they're stereotyped, because they do tend to pull back to watch and to gather information about what's going on. And part of the reason they do that is because they're really hyper aware of the energy that they have. Type 5s have the least amount of energy on the Enneagram. It's kind of like when you charge your phone overnight, like you expect the battery level to be up at 100% when you wake up in the morning. It's almost like type 5's battery only charges to like 25%. And so they're working with less energy and they know it. And so what happens is they feel that energy lack. And so they worry about being incapable to do all the things that they need to. So they desire most of all to be able to be competent. And they fear being incapable or depleted of energy. So sometimes that meme where they can't stay at the party longer than 15 minutes because it wears them out too much. Some of that is true because they're constantly making sure that they have the energy that they need. But what they really want is just to have everything figured out so that they can feel safe and secure and have enough energy to do all the things that they know that they're going to be responsible for doing. Okay, type 6, this is my husband, by the way. Type 6 is the loyalist, and they are super faithful, hardworking people. They're some of the best problem solvers there are, great at troubleshooting, and really concerned with the common good. One of my favorite teachers says, like, our day and age is 6s and 9s are super important in our world today because they're so plugged into what would be good for the common good. They're very group focused. They fear itself. So like a core fear itself, meaning like, you know, they struggle with anxiety sometimes. My husband's always like, why do I always paint the 6 as somebody who's just so fearful? That's not really how it comes off. In fact, some 6s, instead, you've heard of fight or flight, some 6s actually go toward the thing that they're afraid of. And so this is a whole nother little flavor of 6 that's out there. Again, one of the levels of the Enneagram called subtypes gives a lot of insight into how different 6s operate differently. That'll be for another time. But 6s are very witty people and they long just to feel safe and secure. So they do that by questioning and by surrounding themselves with people that they know that they can rely on. And so they fear not having that. And they also struggle with worst case scenario thinking. When you see all kinds of things that could possibly go wrong, it's hard not to see them all the time. And so sixes just long to be safe and secure. Sevens are known as the enthusiast. I've also heard them called the epicure. And a lot of people say sevens are just the life of the party, which, you know, that's a lot of pressure for a seven. You have to be the life of the party all the time. But sevens do tend to be fun. That's why they get that reputation. They're inquisitive and curious. They are spontaneous, and they tend to have a lot of energy. They have a constant desire for more, which is good and helps them seek out really amazing adventures and ideas and things, but can also be hard for sevens when they see life as this endless buffet and they want to try a little bit of everything. So they just have this desire of being satisfied and content, and they long to hear that they'll be taken care of. Sometimes they feel like they've got to be the one that's providing all the stimulation and all the fun and bringing all the joy. And the best way to love a six in your life is to bring some of that joy on your own and to provide for them too. So, all right, type 8 moves us back into that body center, 8, 9, and 1. I started with 1. But 8 can get a bad rap on the Enneagram, but 8s can be super inspiring too. These people bring a ton of power. When an 8 walks into a room, sometimes you can actually feel their presence in the room. They tend to just have a lot of bearing, and that comes from this confidence and this power that they seem to exude without even trying. They're very decisive and practical. They have a BS meter like nobody else, so don't try and do that kind of stuff to them. They don't like being controlled, and they really don't want to be at the mercy of injustice. These are the protectors, the challengers. These people have an inner circle of people that's maybe 5 people deep, right? The closest people to them they're going to fiercely protect like a mama bear, but they are also super, they're just pretty inspiring when they're in healthy space. Now, it bears saying that everybody on the Enneagram can either be a really healthy version of their number, or they can be a really unhealthy version of their number. And those two things look very different. For example, 2 famous people that were 8s, these are 2 guys, but so Joseph Stalin was an 8. Some people think that our current for the next 13 days president was an 8, but also Martin Luther King Jr. was an 8. And so you can see a broad range of how a personality can get expressed, and self-awareness is everything, isn't it? 8s have a desire for intensity, and they just want to know that they won't be betrayed. They want to protect themselves and the people in their lives. And the secret about 8s is they have a big, strong exterior, but they have one of the softest hearts on the Enneagram. They're very tender on the inside. All right, type 9 rounds us out. And type 9, I like to talk about last because I feel like the type 9 really unifies the entire Enneagram. They sit kind of perched at the top of the symbol there. Some people call them the crown of the Enneagram, but they are, just like their name suggests, they're peaceful people. They're easygoing. If you know a 9, you're probably like, oh my God, they're the best. They are just open, they're accepting of themselves and of other people. What they fear most of all, though, is conflict. So they want to keep peace most of the time. And when they're in healthy space, they are peacemakers. But they can fall into the trap of falling asleep to their own desires, keeping the peace by not speaking up. And so often 9s are not really sure what they want out of life because they've kind of numbed their own desires. Their work is to wake up to those and to realize that their presence really matters and that their voice really matters. And they can't do that if they're sleepwalking through life or complacent with how things are. 9s will learn to step into that body triad and access some of that anger and that power so that they can make a big difference in the world and take the right action that is theirs to take. They're in the gut center too, so they bring a lot of energy when they're in healthy space. So that is all of the trip around the Enneagram. That was pretty quick, but let me see what I have here. That's just my contact info. But I want to get back to the chat and see if you guys had questions or if there was anything else that you were interested in. As I wrap up, again, I want you to understand, even though we're giving a type and we're assigning a number to you, you are not your type. Remember, I told you that persona means mask, and your type is a type of mask that you wear, and it protects you and it keeps you safe, and it's worked for you for many, many years. But you're not your type. You're so much more than your type. And remember, it's just where the starting point is, the place that you set out on your journey from to grow and become who you truly are. So, all right. Anybody have questions or things that you wanted to ask me? Oh yeah, Richard Rohr, I love that.
So someone's asking if there's a quiz you can recommend to take that would be accurate and helpful.
Okay, let's see. So Enneagram can be used a couple different ways. Like if you're comfortable for like a Christian perspective, there's a quiz out there on yourenneagramcoach.com, but it's got a lot of faith stuff in it. And so if that's not your jam, then my best quiz, I think, would be to pay for the READY test, which is RHETI through the Enneagram Institute. That one's like $12, but it comes with a lot of great info. And that's the one that I use with my clients when they want to start out with a test.
Someone is asking about all the arrows, and that was going to be my question too, because I think that is such an interesting part of it where you can move towards numbers.
What happened?
Can you explain that a teeny bit, or is that... Oh no, sorry.
She's screen sharing.
Oh, okay.
RHETI. Thank you.
Be hard. I'm switching all through here, but okay. So yeah, arrows and lines are an important part of the Enneagram. They show you your direction of growth, and they show you your direction of stress. So it's connecting the numbers too. So say you're a 7, you're connected to 1, and you're connected to 5. Both of those numbers offer you tools. They offer you different flavors for your type, and they explain kind of the way you act when you're in stress and when you're growing. So yeah, it would take a ton of time, but the arrows are your direction of growth and stress. Learn about the 2 numbers that you're connected to, and that gives you an even more rounded out picture of your type and how it can grow.
You mean growth both directions, even if it's coming towards you or going away from you? Okay.
That's a great question. So, so 1 is your direction of stress. Okay. So this one is, let's see. So you take on the average to unhealthy behaviors of the type you're connected to in stress, and you take on the behaviors of the upper to middle. Like if you're in healthy space, you'll say I'm a type 1. I'll explain to you how mine works. So I'm connected to 7 when I'm growing, and that means the best parts of 7, right? That doesn't mean that I can't do the unhealthy parts of 7 too. You can access the high levels and the low levels of any number that you're connected to, right? Same is true for your stress number. So I go to 4 in stress. You can see the line connecting to 4. So that puts me in the low levels of when I'm in the stress area, but actually I can access the high levels of 4 too. And that's really, really healthy space. So any number you're connected to, you have access to all of its qualities, for the better or for the worse. Okay. Yeah. It just so happens that when you're stressed, you're going to be in the lesser qualities of the stress number that you're connected to. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Yeah, those are the arrows. Yeah. There's more in
I had a
there. I can't look at
question.
my screen and
I don't know if I'm
the
supposed
ready test. Thanks for linking that. Is it possible that I don't need a test? Yeah, honestly, a test is not the best way. And so talking through it with someone who really knows the Enneagram or reading, a test is a good jumping off point though. I'm not going to harsh a test necessarily, but like I said, you don't just want to bank on the you really resonate. Check the core behaviors, the core fears, core desire. And if those resonate, then you're probably in the ballpark, but stay open. Every now and then I have a lot. So somebody asked about wings earlier. When you're looking at the symbol, you notice that there are numbers on either side of you. I'm going back to my sharing screen. I hope I'm not. Okay, so the numbers on either side of your number are your wings. So for example, if you're a 9, you can have an 8 wing or a 1 wing, but you can't have a 7 wing. So a 9 wing 7 isn't a thing. All right. So I'm a 1, 2 wing is really strong. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe, gosh, did I mistype? Am I a 2? Because mistyping can be pretty common. But I've always tested as a 1. But sometimes you can really have a lot of the qualities of the wing. So taking a test, it doesn't hurt anything. But sometimes reading or talking it out with someone or doing your own research is going to be the best way to make sure. I can't see the chat. If there's any questions, you guys let me know.
I had a question.
Okay.
So when I took like some online quiz, I've taken a few, I was sort of realizing that like the way I am in certain areas, like personal life versus like work, is very different. Like I think I'm more laid back in personal life, more like assertive in work life. So there were some questions that I was like, well, this would like depend on what situation I'm in. I would like respond very differently depending on what situation I'm in. So I don't even know if this is something that you could answer, but like thinking about like what lens to look through when you're answering these quizzes or like trying to think through like which you fall under.
Right. And sometimes those quiz questions are like, the first half you totally agree with, and then the second half you're like, no, that ruins it. Like now I can't answer like I thought I was going to answer. So that's the limitation of a test. So if I was working with you one-on-one, I would say, okay, which types are you thinking you sound most like based on the core fears and core desires? That would be the main thing that I looked at. Now you could, if work is a stressful situation, you could be pulling on your stress number a lot at work. And so that could be why you seem more assertive, because you're leaning into the gifts of that number you're connected to. And so I would explore that a little and see which one of those resonated more with you. So always go back to the core fears. That ought to give you the information, and just be open and self-observe. The name of the game is self-observation. Just become that person. Just really become an expert in what you're doing, and then you can look at like why you're doing it. Because people of different types can do the same behavior, right? Like, you might have a behavior, you might be really caring or something, but the different types have caring dispositions for different reasons, right? So a type 2 might do that because like they really want to be needed. And so they're caring outwardly, hoping that someone will return that to them. But a type 3 might be caring because they really want to be seen as someone caring, and it's important to them to be seen as someone who cares about other people. So there's a lot of different reasons. And type 8, if we're looking at the arrows, see how 8 is connected to 2. They may be in a stressed out thing, and so their stress is leading them to be hyper focused in carrying on someone. So looking at the reason that the behavior is motivated is the key.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah, hope that helps.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Oh, hi. Well, I thought it was, thank you so much, first of all. I learned about the Enneagrams a couple years ago, and you'll find this interesting. I learned it from my father-in-law, who we've had an interesting relationship. He told the family everyone's number, and he said, no, this is your number. This is it. Like, I said, well, how do you know? He's like, I just know. He's a 1.
Oh, no.
So I was actually very offended and really upset. I'm a 4. And I just read about the 4, and I'm reading about the bat, when you're not in harmony. And I thought, oh gosh, this is how we view. I was very upset about it. But then I was intrigued also, and I became obsessed with proving him wrong that I wasn't a 4, but I realized I really am a 4. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that you made that point that no one should tell you what your Enneagram is. But I also am very happy that he did, because I love it and I love learning about it. And my husband said that growing up, his parents talked about it all the time when they were dealing with anyone outside of the home. They'd say, oh, well, we have to deal with them differently. She's a 1, or this person's a 2. And to be honest, it has really helped me in my relationship with my in-laws and other family members, because he's told me what numbers they are. And now I know that we just think so differently. It's really helped me. Anyway, and even your explanation going even further, I just love hearing about it. But I thought you might like to hear that little.
Oh, I did. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, and it's going to be hard. Like, once it's hard not to kind of get an idea of someone's type. And it's helpful for us to kind of have an idea. To tell them is another step that maybe he should have taken. But it's helpful to understand, like, okay, this is how they see the world. Of course, they're acting this way. And any place that we can kind of just get understanding of how another person is seeing things, I think helps us. It helps us make it not be so personal. Most of the ways people are acting toward us are not personal. If we can grasp that and tie it back to this other motivation, that really helps, I think. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I was realizing that I think I do this a lot, like black and white thinking. I think I've a lot of times thought there's the way I think and then the way everyone else thinks, or like that there's just like a few. And I didn't realize that was sort of an unconscious bias that I had, but like realizing there's that many with all the variables. I mean, I know that everybody has, but I don't know. There was something about it that sort of struck me to be realizing like the variation is a lot more than I think the way my brain sometimes thinks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Did you say, what type are you?
Me, Danielle. Me?
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
The test.
7. Okay.
I think with.
Yeah. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, it seems like it a lot. And it makes me worried because the part that's the negative is like enthusiast and like wanting to do a lot of things. I mean, that's totally me, like the buffet of life. And like, it makes me upset all the things I can't do. So I still try to do like all the things. So
yeah,
it really.
There's so many things to experience, right? The world is so big.
No, I mean, I never realized. I've actually said this, like, I wish I could have gone to college like 4 different times. Like, I have a whole picture of like the different college experiences that I would have had.
Yeah.
But what do you say,
Helpful.
like if you have a type and you know that there's the part that's negative to you that you wish like I think I struggle with like staying deep into something.
Yeah. So that's the hard part, right? I think the number one thing is to just give yourself a lot of compassion. Nobody ever got shamed into changing and growing. So if you think you struggle with not being able to go as deep in areas, then your awareness of that is really good. And because you have awareness of that, you can do something about it. if you feel like maybe focus is going to be the main thing for a 7 to develop. Focus is going to be your friend. And it's difficult, but if you can find something you really love to deepen into, yes, 7s get a bad rap, like that they're really shallow, but it's not that they're shallow. In fact, they can be one of the most wise numbers on the Enneagram. Your connection to 5 helps that a lot. Remember, 5 is really deep and loves to delve deeply into info. So using those moves that we have on the Enneagram to round out our personality and help a 7 go deeper is going to be really helpful for you. Delve into something that you really love and stay with it. Yeah, but here's the thing. The other side to that is that you being involved in so many things has made you really multifaceted and really interesting and helped you in a lot of ways too. So every one of our kind of negative qualities has a silver lining to it too. It's just being aware of it and not letting ourselves run away with that aspect of who we are. So it's not all bad, right? Yeah.
The thing that I feel like is so great about, I have 2 books on the Enneagram, and just how it seems like there's a lot of resources for if you know your number and you see where it can go on the different arrows and all the things, then there just seem to be a lot of resources that point you to, and here are exercises you can do. This is what you can tap into. This is how you can grow, rather than just sort of, I feel like sometimes it's like vague, like, well, if you want to grow, try to be more like this number. But there are like nice, good, concrete steps laid out. And I feel like what you probably do with your clients is that kind of stuff to like make moves towards your highest, healthiest self.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And even looking at the symbol, like we're talking about Dani being a 7 and maybe needing to focus more. The numbers that you're connected to are basically the antidote to some of the poison that exists in your type. So for 7, having a harder time, having a more scattered sort of attention span, being connected to type 1, who is super focused and super detail oriented, it helps give the 7 an example of behaviors to try, just like you were saying. Like there's a definite growth path, definite things that you can implement into how you live life that help undo some of your type and help get that lighthouse moving. And every single combination has something like that. It's remarkable.
Thank you so much, Dani. This was so awesome. I could talk about this for many more hours. I wish that we had more time.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, if you someone just asked for you to share your contact info.
Oh yeah.
We can also send out an email with all of Dani's info as well, but if you want to enter it in the chat quick too.
Yeah, I can put it in the chat, or I have a screen here. Best way to get in touch with me is Instagram. That's where I hang out most of the time. Let me share this again and see if I can put that on the screen. There, I'll type it, but I can also do that. Let me see here.
Is it Deep Waters Enneagram? Is it at Deep Waters Enneagram?
It is. Okay. Hang on, I got stuck on the screen. So yeah, at Deep Waters Enneagram.
Okay, I spelled it right.
You did. Let me see. I was gonna share that there. I got stuck on a screen and then I couldn't find it again. So that's what was happening a minute ago, if you were wondering. Okay, here we go. Connect with me. There you go. So Deep Waters Enneagram everywhere there.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, and I work with individuals and people in relationships, work with teams, small businesses who want to teach self-awareness skills to their team and help them work better together. And it's just fun to work with people. There's never been a person I've met that, you know, couldn't have been helped by the Enneagram. I just think it's that universal. And self-awareness is it's like the best indicator of success in your life and in your business. The more emotionally intelligent and self-aware that you are, the better you're going to be in all of your relationships. And that's worth quite a lot these days.
Oh, that gave me a really good question. Can I add a question?
Uh-huh.
What about kids? Is it too early, and is that too much? And is that too big of a question? I totally get it if not, because you did like a perfect little wrap it up in a bow.
No, it's good. No, I love it. So I think psychologists tell us our personality is formed by about 5. And that's just by observing our surroundings when we're little kids, like what's working for us. What does mom really like when I do it, and what does she really not like? And we kind of take notes, and this becomes our personality. It's nature, it's nurture, it's all those things. And so like as parents, we can start observing things pretty early. But generally, it's best if a kid can read for themselves and kind of come to an understanding on their own of what their Enneagram type would be. So whatever age that is for your kid, definitely by like, 12 for sure, if a kid's into it, As a mom, you're going to be able to notice things. And if you're Enneagram savvy, you can pick up on things. Especially there's a social style that you can start to understand. It's also called stances, but these are behaviors that you can observe in kids, whether they're like people pleasing, if they tend to be aggressive with other kids, or if they withdraw. That's another one of those triads in the Enneagram system that breaks down into 3 different types. You can kind of get an awareness of where they might fall even before they're old enough. But again, the same rules apply. Don't tell them their type, but let them discover it. But once you know their type, once my kids knew their types, and my kids are a little bit older, it was a game changer because they had an understanding of why they did what they did. And so we could talk on a new level. Enneagram kind of gives you a different language. If you talk Enneagram with your friends, it's like you have this secret language of understanding. And so it's really helpful with your kids too, for sure.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dani.
You are so welcome. This was so much fun. What a fun community you guys have here.
I know. I love seeing everybody here. I love it.
It's fun to see people, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for having me. So awesome. Reach out to me. I love chatting on Instagram or outside of Instagram. Be really fun. If you follow, I think on my link tree, there's a free 9 types typing guide that you can get. So feel free to visit me there and reach out if you guys want to talk more Enneagram ever. I'd love to do it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Dani. Thank you guys all for coming. This was so much fun. Hope to see everybody next month. Stay tuned for what the topic is.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, there you go.
It's going to be a sex therapist, acupuncturist. Anybody who wants to know.
Bye, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Dani.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dani. Oh.
Gone.